The DOJ has come out and said that they are indeed going to be investigating the Donald. Or what are they going to be investigating him for? Well, we're going to find out about that, but I'm a little bit amazed. And I do understand the pressure that the DOJ is under right now, but I am a little bit amazed to see that, yes, Merrick Garland is stupid enough to use his department as a political weapon. A practice for which none of his predecessors has found tasteful to do. So we'll talk just a bit about that, what that means, and where we go. Chris Cuomo is back in the news because he's going to be back on the news. That's right, Chris Cuomo is going to be on News Nation. And if you haven't heard of News Nation, well, you're not alone, because I hadn't either until I saw Chris Cuomo's name in the news. But we'll talk just a bit about that. Ghislaine Maxwell is transferred to a low-security Florida prison to serve out her days doing yoga and having access to young girls, because she does swing both ways. So we will go ahead and talk about that a little bit. And Democrats introduce a bill to enact term limits for the Supreme Court. It is going to be all this and more. You're my favorite breakfast tacos. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have got breaking big-time news for the day here. The fact that the DOJ is going to come back out and do this is just beyond me. This is... there are no words that I can put to this. This is something that I never thought I would see happen in my lifetime. One of the problems that I have with this is the fact that, yes, in especially today's hyper-politicized climate, but even before we got hyper-politicized, where are you going to find somebody who is objective enough to try a former president, number one, who is of the opposite political party, and number two, and this is the big one, this is the one that I've been preaching on, harping on, and going on, and I think that Merrick Garland should be recusing himself of all this, because this is also somebody who the president that he's prosecuting has passed over for the Supreme Court. So I have a lot of problem with this, but also I'm kind of excited to see what happens with this, what it is that they come up with, and seeing some of these, quote, witnesses from the January 6th committee get ripped apart in cross. And even like before they announced this yesterday while I was on Twitter, I saw something from Liz Cheney and I said, hey, you know what? If you bring a charge, that at this point, put up or shut up, bring a charge, so that I can watch your witnesses get ripped apart in cross. And we can all see that your case has absolutely nothing to stand on. Because it has absolutely nothing to stand on. And just a little prediction, a J. Edgar prediction over here. When this fails, if this fails, now, with the investigation, and I'll talk about this in just a minute when we talk about this, after we get done with finance, but there's going to be so much political pressure and public pressure to bring an indictment. Once they say the investigation is open, they have to have an indictment. They have to prosecute. They actually have to convict. Otherwise, they're going to have an insurrection on their grounds, and an actual insurrection, not what the propagandists in the mainstream media call an insurrection, except for, oddly enough, for this one, the propagandists aren't going to use the I word. But they really have no... Like, if Garland can go out and say, he's squeaky clean, we have nothing on him, they will burn the Capitol down. They will burn the DOJ down. They will burn the White House down over that. And it will be the leftoids. Because they were promised. They have been promised the Frog March is coming. He's going to prison. They don't exactly know why they want that, but they've been promised that ever since he came down the escalator in 2015. He's going to prison. It's going to happen. They've got him now. So they've got to do something. If they're going to come out and make this move, they've got to do something. But that's what we're seeing off of that. We actually have to get started into the news and the finance and see what's going on around the world. I have to get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are saying. And let's get started. But before we do, guys, make sure you go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, who has lived to tell about it, is starting to get some interviews from being down there, including it appears that he has been interviewed by someone of the same name as him. I've not seen the interview yet, but I think that that'll be pretty cool to listen to. I've got that on my marked list of things to listen to in the future, so go check that out. Also check out the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-rated conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit. Go check out KTZed and their streams and their upcoming projects that are coming up. Go make sure you check out all those people. They are great friends to the world. They're great friends to liberty. And let's get into it and let's get started. Looking into your finance for the Dow. The Dow collapsed 200 points yesterday, dropping from its comfortable perch of the high 31s. I think it was up to 31,950. Yep, 31,950 to start, all the way down to 31,761.54. Now it looks like the futures are looking back up because we're going to see the rate hike and it's going to be great and we're not going to see inflation anymore. What these investors don't understand, or they do understand and they don't care, is the fact that every time they rate hike like that, every time they add 3/4 of a point, that takes more and more of you, the common man, who I'm building this news program for, out of the markets and takes away your ability to spend money on consumer goods, unless it's food or fuel. Now, the food and the fuel are looking like they are going to be going up sometime in the near future. I don't know how they're going to continue to run back down that, but we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes. Looking at the Bitcoin. The Bitcoin is up to 21,267.50. That is up $7 over the day. $7 even, or 0.3 cents, or 0.03% rather. We were not able to bring back yesterday's sharp losses, unfortunately, but we are starting to see something climb back up. It seems to be that it's slow to climb and fast to drop, but we'll continue to watch that and see where that goes as well. Looking in at the fuel from Gas Buddy. In the Madison area, we're still seeing 366s, so that whole narrative of, well, gas has dropped for 5 days in a row. Well, it just keeps stalling back out. Now, the gas prices are better than they were, and losing the dollar that we've lost on the gas prices so far is a reprieve, but we still need to go back down another at least $1. Hopefully $2 before we can get to a point that's economy growing. So I do hope that somebody looks at the Biden admin and says, hey, drill, baby, drill. But, you know, I have no faith in that either. So we'll see what happens from that. All right, let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. From Investors Business Daily, Dow futures rise on Google, Microsoft earnings, Fed rate hike looms, but watch for this. From Ed Carson. Dow futures rose Wednesday morning along with the S&P and especially the NASDAQ. Google and Microsoft headlined overnight earnings with the Federal Reserve meeting announcement looming large on Wednesday. The stock market rally continued to slide Tuesday as Walmart plunged on earnings warning while Shopify announced big layoffs as growth disappoints. Google parent Alphabet missed on Q2 earnings while Dow Jones giant Microsoft fell short on the top and bottom line, but gave solid guidance, kicking off a big week for tech titans. Meta is due Wednesday, and Apple and Amazon on Thursday. Google and Microsoft rose modestly after both skidded into earnings. Enphase, meanwhile, reported stronger than expected quarter 2 results. Enphase leapt in extended trading, signaling a move beyond key resistance. Chipotle and Texas Instruments rose overnight on earnings, but both are well off highs early Wednesday. Boeing reported wider than expected loss, while quarter 2 revenue also missed, but Boeing stock rose modestly as the Dow Jones giant says it still expects to be cash flow positive in 2022. Well, yes, we see a lot of people that are renewing and rebuilding their airplanes, so that I can see that. Bristol Myers, Squibb, and Humana top views before the open, though Bristol cut full-year targets. BMY stock in Humana fell modestly before the open. Shopify reported an unexpected small adjusted loss and missed on revenue a day after abruptly cutting 10% of staff. Shopify fell sharply after plunging 14% on Tuesday. In other news, investor Elliott Management has taken an unknown stake in PayPal. Dow Jones reported late Tuesday PayPal stock rose more than 6% early Wednesday. Let's see, and this is the video which we're not going to watch, so let's skip over that. On the Fed meeting, all eyes turn to the Federal Reserve Wednesday afternoon as the two-day Fed meeting concludes with a 2 p.m. Eastern Time policy announcement. Markets expect another 75 basis point Fed rate hike. A big question is what Jerome Powell signals for the September Fed meeting and beyond. Markets are still fairly split between a half-point move in September or a 75 basis points in November. Investors are betting on another 25 to 50 basis points, but that's about it. Which means fewer credit cards, fewer mortgages, fewer small business loans, and fewer personal loans the entire way around. Headline inflation has almost certainly peaked given the fall in gasoline prices. See, you keep saying that. And you've been saying that since about April of last year, and yet it just keeps going up month after month, except for that 1 month that it went back down. So, hey, maybe we shouldn't go back out and run this until we actually see a number going down. And also remember, the harvest is coming up, so even if we do see a reprieve into July, August, and September, October is going to be brutal once the food prices and the core inflation starts going up because there isn't that much food on the table. Guys, I went on a hike a couple days ago on Sunday. And corn that is supposed to be well taller than me by this point in the year is barely 5'8". That is not good for the harvest. But price pressures remain high. However, investors expect to see the Fed wrap up rate hikes in a few months, in large part because they see a recession that may already be underway. June new home sales tumbled from a downwardly revised May. The Commerce Department said Wednesday, the latest grim economic report on Thursday morning. Gee, if you make it more expensive to go back out and take out a mortgage, what do you think is going to happen to home sales? You guys look at finance every day. You cannot be this stupid. The Commerce Department said on Wednesday the latest grim economic report. On Thursday morning, Commerce will likely report a second straight quarter of declining GDP, while not officially a recession. Yeah, they're trying to spin that. The only reason I don't have that on the top of the stack right now, instead moving it all the way down here, is because we've got to get to this DOJ thing. There's a strong likelihood that the NBER will eventually declare a U.S. recession, once it becomes politically convenient to do so, by the way. Before the September Fed meeting, investors and policymakers will get the July and August consumer price index readings and jobs reports. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.45% versus fair value. The S&P futures climbed 0.8%, and the Nasdaq jumped 1.4%. Microsoft is a Dow, S&P, and Nasdaq component. Boeing is a Dow and S&P stalwart, while Google and Enphase are S&P and Nasdaq 100 stocks. Crude oil rose 1%. Remember that overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So, some stuff to watch off of that, some things to see as we go with that. The NASDAQ jumping up 1.4%, I'm a little surprised by, given the shakiness of the markets. But again, what we're seeing with the rate hikes is not going to affect the billionaires. It is going to affect you and me. So when Bill Gates or his successor, or Bezos, or Elon, decide they want to take out a big loan to go back and hire more people, or do something, or improve or automate something, they've got the ability to do so because they'll sell off an asset and do it. You will scrape a few pennies together, run to your bank and say, "Please, Mr. Banker, give me my 5.75% loan. I promise I'll get it all paid back. I don't care how much it beats me up to take this mortgage." So that's what they say off of that. All right, let's grab one quick from CNBC on the numbers for yesterday. Dow sheds more than 200 points after Walmart profit warning. S&P 500 falls 1%. From Tanaya McKeel and Sarah Min. Stocks fell Tuesday after Walmart cut its earnings forecast, sending another retail shares lower and adding to concern that consumer spending might not be strong enough to keep the U.S. out of a recession. Dude, we are there. And by the way, we're getting the numbers tomorrow. That will tell us that we're there, except for we're not in a recession. Walmart cut its quarterly and full-year profit estimates because of rising food inflation. This alarmed investors who deliberated the implications for other retail stocks. The big box retailer said higher prices are spurring consumers to pull back on general merchandise spending, particularly in apparel. Walmart plunged 7.6% on Tuesday and dragged other retailers with it. Kohl's and Target dropped 9.1% and 3.6% respectively. Among apparel companies, Macy's was among the hardest hit, down 7.2%. Nordstrom and Ross each lost more than 5%, and TJX companies shed about 4.2%. The SPDR, S&P 500 Retail ETF, fell nearly 4.2%. The most important thing from the Walmart announcement is how inflation is changing what people buy, said Robert Canwell, portfolio manager at Up Holdings. Food will now make up a bigger share of individuals' budgets, but overall spending still generally remains intact. The retail turmoil bled into e-commerce stocks. Shopify tumbled about 14.1% after the payments provider announced it's laying off 10% of its global workforce, citing a pullback in online spending and saying it misjudged how long the pandemic-fueled e-commerce boom would last. The company will report its earnings on Wednesday. Amazon fell 5.2%, Square parent Block and PayPal, both of which operate major merchant service businesses, dropped roughly 7.1% and 5.7% respectively. Inflation has changed the cost of production for companies like General Motors. Its shares fell 3.4% after the company missed earnings estimates, blaming supply chain disruptions that forced the factory shutdowns and led it to ship fewer vehicles than expected. UPS shares also slid 3.4% after the shipping giant reported declines in international and supply chain businesses. So, everything that's telling you that the consumers are out of the market is saying that consumers are out of the market. People have shifted their spending to be food and not much else, or replacing possibly broken items. Not going out and upgrading and buying new items, but just replacing and getting by on stuff that broke, stuff that wore out, things like that. You're not seeing the big purchases like you're seeing now, and yet the markets and everybody else are trying to tell us this is fine, everything's fine, don't worry about any of this. We have got big news to get into today, and this was breaking late last night, so I'm probably one of the first people to talk about this in the morning here. From the Daily Wire, are you ready? Breaking. Trump under federal criminal investigation over actions related to 2020 election, report says. That's right. The DOJ, the FBI, and Merrick Garland are coming in to do this. Now, before I go into this, as I said at the top of the show, before a lot of people were in on the show, my personal opinion, given the position that Merrick Garland is in, given the position that, number one, he's a DOJ hire that was put up by Trump's political enemy. And number two, most importantly, because he was passed over for the Supreme Court by one Donald John Trump. Merrick Garland should be forced to recuse himself from this investigation. Point blank, plain and simple. There is no reason Merrick Garland should be on this investigation. And if not, I know that I'm going to get roundly mocked for saying, if the shoe was on the other foot. If this was going the other way, and let's say this was Bill Barr, even though Bill Barr would never do so, any of this because he's a swamp creature. But let's just say this because they thought that Bill Barr was the axis around which all evil rotated when he was the Attorney General. And then they changed the tune about him when he started saying mean things about the Orange Man, just like they do about literally everybody else in the universe. But to use him as an example, if Bill Barr had come up and said, well, you know what, we've looked into, we've heard the congressional hearings about Benghazi, and it's time for us to come up here and actually do a DOJ investigation into Hillary, because we know Barack wouldn't do it. They would be screaming foul just based on the fact that he was a Trump hire. They'd be screaming foul. They would be screaming from the high heavens. They'd be screaming every single insult that they could at him. You would hear insults made up about Bill Barr. It would be corruption. It would be weaponizing of the DOJ. It would be this, but there are a few things to this. Now, we're going to go through the article before I give some more opinions on this and the position that Bill Barr is in. But this is one that, this is important. This is actually extremely important to decide whether we're in a banana republic, if we're actually in a democracy, so-called a republic, a functioning government, or whether it is time for Mr. Garland to come back out and go after Biden's political enemies. I hope you're in a state that doesn't show your voter registration, because, hey, if you're registered Republican right now, you might be in a little bit of trouble. Aiding and abetting a terrorist. So, we'll see what happens with this. Let's get into the news. This one is from Ryan Saavedra. The U.S. Department of Justice is reportedly investigating the actions of then-President Trump related to events that happened after the 2020 election. The Washington Post, where democracy goes to die in darkness, reported that the DOJ's investigation into Trump was part of its criminal probe and efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Persecutors, and I'm not mispronouncing that word, that's exactly what they are at this point, have reportedly questioned former White House officials in front of a grand jury about any conversations that Trump or his advisors may have allegedly had about trying to replace electors in states that Biden won with pro-Trump electors. Persecutors have also reportedly asked about Trump's alleged attempt to pressure President Pence to overturn the results of the election and any instructions that Trump may have given his legal team about fake electors. AG Garland said that during an interview with NBC News Tuesday that the criminal investigation into the events of January 6th was the most wide-ranging investigation in history. Those words are important, and we're going to come back to that. We're going to put a little pin in this. We're going to come back to this. And there will be things that the DOJ finds that the House-selected January 6th Selfie Fest committee haven't found. Well, if you already know that you're going to find them, then that leads me to believe that you already know that they're there, or you're in the process of planting them. This whole thing reeks. When asked by anchor Lester Holt about whether indicting Trump would tear the country apart, Garland responded, "Well, we intend to hold anyone who is criminally responsible for events surrounding January 6th for any attempt to interfere with the lawful transfer of power from one admin to another accountable. That's what we do. We don't pay attention to other issues with respect to that." When asked if Trump announcing another campaign for president would impact how the DOJ would proceed with the case, Garland responded, I'll say again that we will hold accountable anyone who is criminally responsible for attempting to interfere with the legitimate, lawful transfer of power from one admin to the next. Well, let's listen to it from the crooked man himself.
To justice without fear or favor. We intend to hold anyone who was criminally responsible for the events surrounding January 6th, for any attempt to interfere with the lawful transfer of power from one administration to another, accountable. That's what we do. We don't pay any attention to other issues with respect to that.
So if Donald Trump were to become a candidate for president again, that would not change your schedule or how you move forward or don't move forward?
Say again that we will hold accountable anyone who was criminally responsible for attempting to interfere with the legitimate, lawful transfer of power from one administration to the next.
Yo, this is dangerous. This is real dangerous territory. Now, is part of this a way to make sure that no Republican ever becomes president? Yes. Oh, absolutely. Part of this is a way to go back and hold on power, but I want to go back and talk about what we put a pin in for just a moment here. The most wide-ranging investigation in history. Have you shared a pro-Trump meme recently? Or at any point since 2015? Have you ever said the words, "Make America Great Again"? You're under the microscope as being complicit with terrorism, based on things to both say that this is the most wide-ranging investigation in history, and what Garland said, we will hold accountable anyone who's criminally responsible for attempting to interfere with the legitimate transfer of power from one admin to the next. This goes all the way back. All the way back. To what I said what I actually first started saying when we first saw the Justice for January 6th failure rally all the way back in September. I recounted the coworker of mine who told me that they were going to go protest in D.C. That if the people in D.C. didn't give them what they wanted, which to that particular coworker was an uncorrupted, free and fair election. That's what he believed in his mind. That they were going to go to D.C. They were going to take the fight to them. And they were going to show the people in D.C. what they meant. And I looked at him and I said, Bob, that's a trap. At the time, I still remember. And now that I see more of this, I believe that more than anything else, that was a trap. The riot, getting so many people into D.C., so many Trump voters who wouldn't be able to vote in the next election if they were able to cop a felony. All into one place. Now, again, at the time, I thought that they were going to die. I thought that if you went down to D.C., you'd have the National Guard, the D.C. Capitol Police, snipers, the military sitting up there with rifles, ready to go start killing Trump supporters. I'm glad they didn't do that. But that's one thing that I say right off from the beginning. Don't take the fight to the government, especially on their grounds. They're better at killing than you are. If you want to fight the government, let them bring it to you. On terrain that you know. Not necessarily terrain that they know. Because they are not going to run a tank down Highway 14. That's just not going to happen. They're not going to bring drones into the middle of Madison. Well, nobody's going to protest in Madison because they're afraid that their neighbors will start throwing bottles at them, but the military vehicles are not going to lock down Kenosha. If they bring the fight to you, it's going to be a man in a black suit, actually probably several men in black suits, Dolce & Gabbana usually, because, hey, no bid contract on the government, with 45 sidearms, all packed together in a Ford Expedition to come knocking at your door. All of them wearing sunglasses and earpieces. If the government's going to bring the fight to you, that's what they're going to bring. If you bring the fight to them, they will roll out the tanks, the jets, the drones, the snipers. However, with that being there, and the most wide-ranging investigation in history, on top of the people that have already been picked up for the January 6th Selfie Fest, there are going to be more. Anybody who considered going down there is going to be complicit and accomplice. This was a trap. And I told people it was a trap. But that's what we have for that. See what CNN has to say about this. Latest move suggests DOJ investigation of 2020 election is looking at conduct directly related to Trump and his closest allies, from Tierney Sneed and Evan Perez. The move by the Justice Department is to bring 2 top aides to former Vice President Mike Pence in front of a general grand jury, is the most aggressive public step taken yet by prosecutors investigating the plots to subvert the 2020 election. It signals that the department's probe has reached inside of former President Trump's White House, and that investigators are looking at conduct directly related to Trump's and his closest allies' efforts to overturn the election defeat. Former Pence Chief of Staff Mark Short testified in front of a grand jury in D.C. on Friday. CNN has confirmed. I wonder what big deal they gave him. Just tell us what we want you to say. It doesn't matter if it's a lie, if it's a perjury. Even if you get caught lying under oath in front of the grand jury, we'll just make those charges disappear. Just tell us what we want you to say. CNN has confirmed fellow Pence aide Greg Jacob testified in recent weeks as well. CNN has learned from a source close to the investigation, an unnamed source, as usual. The questions to Jacob, in short, included a focus on the fake elector scheme and the role of Trump lawyers John Eastman and Rudolph Giuliani, the source said. Short and Jacob were both present in key meetings in the lead-up to the January 6th Selfie Fest that were part of the pressure campaign to convince Pence to disrupt Congress's certification of Joe Biden's electoral win. Jacob, as a former legal advisor to Pence, has participated in the House January 6th Select Committee investigation, even testifying publicly at a hearing last month, without a cross. He has not responded to CNN's inquiries about reports of his grand jury testimony. Short confirmed to CNN's Aaron Burnett on Monday that he complied with a grand jury subpoena, but declined to discuss any details about his appearance. Short previously sat for deposition in the House investigation. You'll remember Short as being one of them in the selectively edited videos that were highly produced by CNN. Short's and Jacobs' accounts were among evidence that a federal judge in California cited in concluding that Trump and his allies may have been planning a crime in their plot to disrupt the transfer of presidential power. Why is California in on this, by the way? How to approach Trump in the January 6th investigation has been a delicate question for the Justice Department. The department has faced immense pressure from lawmakers, former prosecutors, and others, rabid simping fans, to focus on the ringleaders of the 2020 election reversal gambits, but any investigation of a former president raises a host of highly sensitive and potentially explosive political and legal questions. That Pence's inner circle is now being compelled to cooperate in the probe suggests at least some of these obstacles have been cleared. Last week, Garland was visibly frustrated when a reporter grilled him about the possibility that the former president would be charged, as the former judge repeated vague assertions that no person is above the law in this country. In an interview with Lester Holt on NBC Nightly News on Tuesday, Garland said the DOJ will look at any interference on the lawful transfer of power. Yeah, we saw this. Adam Kinzinger, one of 2 Republicans in the House Select Committee, Republicans, so-called, said that Pence aides testifying is a positive development. The DOJ needs to look at any possible criminality, Kinzinger said on Tuesday on CNN's New Day. I ask, what have they been doing for the last year and a half? That said, they're moving forward on looking at this stuff. That's positive for the country. Short, Kinzinger added, is a source that we coached properly. Is a good source. He certainly knows how to say what we told him to. Excuse me. He certainly knows a lot of what happened. And I think under oath, you can pretty much commit to say anything that we tell you to. Can be pretty much committed that he'll tell the truth, the congressman said. Sorry, the actual honesty of the situation just seems to creep out a little bit off of this. So, I want to talk about what this means, because this is a public announcement. First and foremost, I do think this is a pressure campaign from the followers of Joe Biden, from the progressives, from the Democrats who have been convinced and told and promised since 2015 that because Trump decided to run, that means that he's going to be frog marched out of first Trump Tower and now Mar-a-Lago. That they've been promised since from the beginning. It's happening. It's going to happen. It's coming. It's coming. Merrick Garland's hands are tied at this point in 2 different directions. Number 1, there should be a pressure campaign to force Garland to recuse himself. Like I said at the top, he was passed over by this person. This is a revenge move, or at least could be construed as such. A revenge for not getting his seat on the Supreme Court. And now the pressure will come off of this too. Oh, well, it's time to go and dismiss all 3 of those justices and replace them by far-left justices and restore the balance of the Supreme Court. That's coming, just so you know. It's nowhere in the Constitution that there's no prescription in the Constitution to make it happen, but that allegation is coming, just so you know. But again, Garland has no choice but to indict at this point. If he doesn't, all these idiots that you see on Twitter that tell you, he's going to jail, he's going to jail, all of these morons will insurrect against the government. They will run down to the Capitol and shake the fences and throw the bottles if they don't get their way. This is important. And of course, if they get the indictment and the witnesses get shredded in trial, which they will, because none of them have any idea what to do if they're not being coached. And the second you get a defense attorney coming out here on a federal case, unfortunately we won't get to watch this either because this will be a federal case. But the second you get these people in front of a defense attorney, they will be shredded to pieces. Well, then Kinzinger and Cheney are going to get thrown under the bus. Most likely not in office either. So, that is what we see for that. Let's grab one from the Hill. January 6 panels Trump evidence raises pressure on DOJ from Rebecca Beach and Harper Nedick. I don't know who that hipster is, but he's using satellite data to save the beaches, apparently. The House Committee investigating the Selfie Fest was able to offer additional damning evidence against Donald Trump in its final hearing for the summer, ramping up pressure on the DOJ to more directly investigate the former president. Thursday's hearing furthered the insight into Trump's state of mind the day of the Selfie Fest after he removed language from a January 6 address, asking rioters to leave the Capitol, and on January 7th, as he slashed language from an address condemning their actions and struggled to say the election was over. Blah, 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 blah. Benny Thompson, the panel's chairman, said during the last week's hearing that the evidence surrounding the January 6th presents an urgent need to assign criminal responsibility to all those involved. Blah, 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 blah. We've heard all this before. We've been hearing it since 2015. Kevin Moonigal, a law professor at Case Western Reserve University and former federal prosecutor, believes that the evidence against Trump is overwhelming, but the department is taking the right approach to investigation by being deliberate and not making public remarks about the evidence. Really, the thing that prosecutors ought to do is you shut up until you file the charges, then you present the evidence in court. McMoonigal said, "That's the way it ought to be done. But I would be devastated if the DOJ didn't eventually file some sort of really serious charge against him," he added. "For what? We don't know. I believe the charge is running for president as an outsider. Experts stress that the DOJ would be able to fill gaps that the committee can't, likely by pushing witnesses such as former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and others to cooperate." But Mariotti pointed to a recent report from the New York Times, a former newspaper, that prosecutors were only more recently discussing directly investigating Trump after hearing damning evidence from Cassidy Hutchinson. What evidence? No, seriously, what evidence did Cassidy Hutchinson bring forward? "Oh, I heard from the Secret Service director's friends, brothers, cousins, uncles, college roommates, girlfriends, buddy, that this is what happened in the car." I was concerned about it because if they aren't even discussing these matters, much less aggressively investigating them, I think they're not doing their job. Because while I believe that any charge against Trump arising from January 6th would be difficult to prosecute, I don't think there's any excuse for not carefully looking at the matter and investigating the matter, he said. This is going to get ugly. From NBC, Merrick Garland calls the Justice Department's January 6 probe the most wide-ranging investigation in its history. I actually think we can skip this one because we talked about this with the Daily Wire article. That just to remember, if you've ever shared a pro-Trump meme, you might be under the microscope of the DOJ right now. Let's grab another one from The Hill. Garland says potential Trump campaign won't impact the DOJ's January 6th work. From Jared Gans. AG Garland said former President Trump's potential candidacy in the 2024 presidential election will not affect the Justice Department's work, holding these responsible for the January 6, 2021 Selfie Fest accountable. Garland said in an interview with NBC's Lester Holt, which will air Tuesday, that his department pursues justice without fear or favor and does not pay attention to other issues. We intend to hold anyone who's criminally responsible for the events surrounding January 6 for any attempt to interfere with the lawful transfer of power from one admin to another accountable, he said. That's what we do. So, he has come out and said that he is not going to hinder this based on whether or not Trump announces, which he's going to be doing fairly soon. I think that this pushed up the pressure for him to do it before the midterms, even though I do hope and pray that he does it after the midterms, because he is the kind of person who tends to take all the air out of the room. But as far as what we're seeing here, the timing of this, the interview happened on Tuesday, which means that sometime shortly before the interview, Garland himself decided that he was going to come back and press the charges, that he was going to press for the investigation. In an interview that came out right before we're about to get the most major and damning economic numbers for the Biden admin, 2 quarters in a row that they've been trying to downplay and spin into, don't worry, it's not a real recession. This is a distraction. And unfortunately, it is a distraction, which means that they will be forced to come back out and at least make an indictment. So that's what we see for that. Justice Department doesn't need a House referral to charge Trump and might not want one anyway, legal experts say. That's actually true. Fresh off a primetime inspection of Trump's inaction on January 6th, members of the House committee investigating the Selfie Fest made the rounds on television and relayed their key takeaway. The former president, they all agreed, engaged in gross misconduct with his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. But, in an appearance on CNN, Liz Cheney said the House Select Committee has yet to resolve a rare internal spat that spilled into public view last month over whether to make a criminal referral, formally recommending the Justice Department persecute the former president. We've not decided yet, as a committee, whether we're going to make the criminal referrals, but that's absolutely something we're looking at, said Cheney, the House Committee's Republican vice chair, and there's no question that we've seen very serious misconduct and certainly supreme dereliction of duty. The referral question has loomed over the committee through 8 public hearings that presented damning. What damning evidence? There has been no damning evidence against the former president, but for the Justice Department, such a referral is unnecessary to prosecute and could undermine considerations for bringing the charges against the former president, legal experts told insiders. The department is going to make its own decision, said Neil Eggleston, the former Obama White House counsel, who years earlier during the Reagan admin served as deputy chief counsel for the House investigation into the Iran-Contra scandal. The Department of Justice doesn't really care if Congress thinks there should be a criminal prosecution, particularly in something this high profile. So here's the deal with what's going on with this, and I'm going to take Garland's own opinion out of this for just a second and tell you why a criminal referral from the January 6th committee would be a bad idea. Now, who was on the January 6th Selfie Fest committee? 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans who have openly denounced the former president. In this case, the defendant. Everything that we would see coming out of the January 6th Selfie Fest committee would be politically charged. And in fact, given the politics, given the overt political pressure of the Selfie Fest committee, if this wasn't a political witch hunt coming out of the DOJ, we'll entertain the fact that for just a second in make-believe land that the DOJ is pursuing an actual charge against the former president that has some merit behind it. To have an entirely partisan committee who have overtly expressed their desire to stop the defendant in the case, no matter what, would do nothing but damage the case in the public's eyes. Now, Garland himself, being an adversary of the defendant prior to charges being brought, is a conflict of interest in and of itself. But once you bring in the fact of 7 opposite party people and 2 people who've made it their life's goals to bring the party of the defendant back into the direction of spending money on defense contractors over oil in foreign countries and bombing brown kids for that, that makes an entire political mess that you do not want to put this country into. And that is outside of partisanship on my end. Do keep in mind that I did just get the fairly exciting news that, hey, I might actually vote for this orange idiot a third time, this orange spending spree a third time, because, hey, if you're going to fire 50,000 people out of the federal government, I'm a happy guy. Let's grab another one from CNN. This one goes on to the Secret Service side. Democratic chairs call for IG to recuse in Secret Service text probe. From Whitney Wild and Jeremy Herb. Two top House Democrats are calling for the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General to recuse himself from an investigation into Secret Service text messages, saying they lost confidence after he failed to inform Congress for months that messages around January 6th may have been erased. Carolyn Maloney and Benny Thompson, who also chairs the House January 6th committee, wrote to DHS Inspector General Joseph Kufari on Tuesday, saying his failure to tell Congress the Secret Service wasn't providing records cast serious doubts on its independence and his ability to effectively conduct such an important investigation. No! Let's find somebody partisan to do it instead, not somebody who actually investigates this in a nonpartisan fashion. Let's find somebody partisan to do this. This is getting dangerous. These omissions left Congress in the dark about key developments in this investigation and may have cost investigators precious time to capture relevant evidence. The Dems wrote, "There must be no doubt that the IG leading the investigation can conduct it thoroughly and with integrity, objectivity, and independence. We do not have confidence that the IG Kufari can achieve those standards." I.e., he's not partisan on our side. So let's take him out of the equation. And let's put somebody else there who can plant any evidence that we want to have. In the letter, the lawmakers wrote that the IG told Congress in November 2021 that DHS significantly delayed access to records related to the review of January 6, but that the IG failed to say the Secret Service was the reason. In addition, Ghaffari was informed in December 2021 that the text messages sent and received by Secret Service agents related to the event of January 6 had been erased, Maloney and Thompson wrote. Yet the Inspector General, Ghaffari, took no steps to inform Congress of the serious and flagrant violation of federal records laws. The lawmakers said the DHS IG's failure to promptly report and escalate the Secret Service's stonewalling calls into question whether IG Ghaffari has professional judgment and capacity to effectively fulfill his duties in the investigation. So, politicize the Secret Service, make them partisan. Politicize the investigation, make that partisan. With the one good decision coming out of Garland saying, "Oh yeah, no, you know what, let's just keep the January 6th committee out of this. They've got their campaign ads now for their midterms, so let's just keep them out of this. Let's say we're doing an investigation, and we've been doing it for a while, right before the inflation numbers come out. So everyone on Twitter is arguing about the investigation, not the recession." This is your government, folks. All right, let's talk Harris. Kamala Harris. I'm Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm a woman. I don't know what a woman is, but I'm a woman. Sitting at the table, wearing a blue suit.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And good afternoon. I want to welcome these.
So I legitimately want to know what happened to this woman. And I'm not saying this to throw shade either, by the way. This is actually a little bit worrying. This is the same woman who, even though she was misguided, even though she was lying, was able to stand out in front of the Senate and lie about Justice Kavanaugh. Yeah, you know that I know that you knew somebody in this law firm. And who did you know in this law firm? This random law firm out of Boston that might actually be Trump supporting. Who did you know in that law firm? Look, I'm asking you a direct question. Who'd you talk to? And even as much as distasteful as it was, and how much they called it a "Yes, Slay Queen" moment, this is the "Excuse me, bracelet jingle, toe tap. I'm speaking, Mr. Pence. Okay." That person has been reduced to this. Nervously telling us about her pronouns and the suit that she's wearing.
Good afternoon. I want to welcome these leaders for coming in to have this very important discussion about some of the most pressing issues of our time. I am Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I am a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit. And good afternoon.
What has happened in the last 4 years? That made her into this nervous, babbling bimbo. Again, the same person. I'm speaking, Mike. I'm speaking. That's the same person. From the Daily Mail. I'm Kamala Harris. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a woman. Excuse me, Vice President Harris, what is a woman? Wearing a blue suit. VP introduced herself at a round table on the impact of Roe v. Wade being overturned. From Caitlin Corrale, U.S. political reporter for DailyMail.com. Kamala Harris opened up a roundtable meeting on Tuesday afternoon with the disability advocates by announcing her name, sex, gender identity, and what she was wearing. The event was to mark the 32nd anniversary of the enactment of the Americans with Disabilities Act. She said the Supreme Court overturning Roe last month is particularly concerning due to the effects it could have on the Americans with disabilities. Oh, step off. Claiming the decision will uniquely impact this community. And then when she goes on to talk on the American Native American Council, like, well, the Roe, that'll have a direct impact on this community, a unique impact on this community. And then when she goes to the inner city, surrounded by 75 Secret Service agents in a plexiglass window, she'll say, the overturning of Roe versus Wade will have a unique impact on this community. It's niche politics, it's divisive, and it's just idiotic. From NBC, Chris Cuomo is back into the news. Chris Cuomo to join News Nation in a return to TV news. From Samantha Kubota, Chris Cuomo is returning to TV news. The former CNN anchor, who was fired in December from the network, is joining News Nation. The outfit is owned by Nexstar Media, which owns television stations across the U.S. Cuomo on Tuesday appeared on News Nation and spoke with anchor Dan Abrams in what was touted as Cuomo's first media interview since leaving CNN last year. In his comments, Cuomo said he believes that there should be more middle of the road political coverage because this binary system is killing us. And the media is trapped in it very often, okay? You can't be criticizing the game that you're a part of. CNN terminated Cuomo after an investigation showed that he had helped his brother, former New York Governor Andy Cuomo, defend himself against sexual misconduct allegations. He is seeking a $125 million arbitration award, claiming the network wrongfully terminated him. His legal team said in March. During Tuesday's night interview, he confirmed that it's still ongoing. And that's the report from 2021 when he got it canned. And if you haven't heard of News Nation, don't feel bad. Or Nexstar Media, for that matter. Don't feel bad. Because Neither have I. Cuomo denies wrongdoing. Chris Cuomo denies wrongdoing in first interview since CNN ouster. I never lied, okay? I'm not a wise guy. Are you being a wise guy by asking? From Allie Griffin. And we can actually sit back and watch that too, by the way. 2 clips. Cuomo denied any wrongdoing in the first televised interview since being canned from CNN last year over his role in advising his older brother, Andy, throughout the then governor's sexual harassment scandal. I never lied, and there were no secrets, the former primetime anchor told Dan Abrams in an interview set to air Tuesday night on News Nation. Let's watch.
You feel you were a victim of cancel culture?
No. I don't think I've ever been a victim of anything ever in my life. You make choices. You make a choice to be in this business. You make a choice to be in that dynamic and to want to be relevant. And it's not always going to be easy. It's not always going to be fair. My therapist has a great line. Fair is the only real 4-letter word, in terms of a curse. I don't feel sorry for myself. I'm certainly not a victim.
Are you angry at your brother at all about everything that happened?
I'm angry at my brother on a regular basis. But specifically to your question, I love my brother. The rule in my family is very simple. Family, trouble, go. Other people have the luxury of judging allegations and situations. For me, it was about helping my brother in a hard way and doing it in a way that I didn't think compromised what matters. And that's what guided me.
So, that's what he had to say about what he did. Probably carefully coached over the years. I still don't know what News Nation is. I still don't know... What was the name of the network? Next Star Media. I don't know what any of this is, but... Hey, congratulations for going back to work, Cuomo. Oddly enough, about the time that this happened. From Insider, former Cuomo staffer killed by a passing car after getting kicked out of a lift on a highway, reports say. Oh, really? Is there some honkety-honk going on here? From Sophia Ankel. Is this the new mob tactic? An ex-staffer for former New York Governor Andy Cuomo was killed by a passing car after getting kicked out of his Lyft ride in a Delaware highway, multiple reports say. Sid Wolf, 43, was traveling with 5 friends from Dewey Beach to Bethany Beach in Delaware's coastal highway in the early hours of Sunday morning when the accident took place. The accident, WJLA reported. The group got into an argument with their Lyft driver while driving on the highway, prompting the driver to stop abruptly in the middle of the left lane and order them out. Delaware State Police sent a press release on Sunday. The police did not say what the dispute was about. I'm sure they didn't. A car behind the Lyft had switched lanes to avoid a collision, but did not see that Wolf had gotten out of the car. Police said Wolf was pronounced dead at the scene. It's unclear whether the part of the highway where Lyft driver stopped had any pedestrian lanes. The other 5 passengers were not injured after leaving the Lyft, police say. So, Chris Cuomo is about to get his career and his job back. After Andy was disgraced, and a former aide just happens to, on the same day, get killed on the side of the highway after getting kicked out of a Lyft. This could all be an amazing coincidence, but given there is mob tactics from New York machine politics involved, I have questions. I know it's evil of me to ask questions, but I have questions. Yeah, 5 people got on the highway, only one happened to get hit, and it happened to be the Cuomo staffer. Weird, huh? From the Hill, Democrats introduce bill to enact term limits for Supreme Court justices. From Michael Schnell. Now, I am in favor of term limits on Supreme Court justices. But I also completely understand that this is another attempt to work around because the Democrats didn't get their way, so now they're again, as usual, trying to change the rules. A group of House Democrats introduced a bill on Tuesday to enact term limits for Supreme Court justices, arguing the move will restore legitimacy and an independence to the nation's highest court. The legislation, titled the Supreme Court Tenure Establishment and Retirement Modernization Act, would authorize the president to nominate Supreme Court justices every 2 years. In the first and third years after a presidential election, the justices who have been on the court the longest will be moved to the senior status first. If confirmed by the Senate, these individuals would serve a maximum 18 years on the bench. After their tenures are complete, the Supreme Court justices would retire from active service and assume senior status. Justices on the bench at the time of the bill's enactment would switch to senior status one by one as justices are confirmed to the bench in the first and third years after the presidential election. Under senior status, justices will still hold their office on the Supreme Court, which includes official duties and pay if the number of justices dips below 9 at some point. Because of vacancy, disability, or disqualification, the justice who most recently attained senior status would serve as the 9th Associate Justice. This sounds like a really, really big workaround because they can't get a constitutional amendment. As far as I know, it's constitutional that the Supreme Court justices serve a lifetime term, which means that they can go until they decide to retire for themselves. Hank Johnson of Georgia introduced the bill alongside Gerald Nadler, David Cicilline of Rhode Island, Sheila Jackson Lee, Steve Cohen of Tennessee, Karen Bass of California, and Ro Khanna of California as co-sponsors. In a statement, Johnson said of the bench is increasingly facing a legitimacy crisis because they're not doing the partisan things that they want the left to do. 5 of the 6 conservative justices on the bench were appointed by presidents who lost the popular vote, and there it is. And they're now racing to impose their out-of-touch agenda on the American people who do not want it, he said, referring to justices nominated by former Presidents Trump and W. Term limits are a necessary step towards restoring balance to this radical, unrestrained majority on the court, he added, as opposed to the radical, unrestrained majority that's enjoyed for 50 years. We can't win, change the rules. And technically, by this, if they're moved to senior status and a new one gets nominated, well, number one, they're packing the court without saying they're packing the court. But number two, well, no, see, they're senior status, which means that they still have their lifetime appointment. This is a workaround, and it's a poor one. Sheldon Whitehouse introduced the same measure in the Senate because, of course, he did. Because why wouldn't he? The inside story of how Roberts failed to save abortion rights. From Joan Biskupik. Let's watch this briefly for just a moment, and then we'll go back and look at some of the lobby.
According to multiple sources, Chief Justice John Roberts fought to the bitter end trying to convince his fellow conservative justices to preserve the constitutional right to abortion. But it was the unprecedented leak of a draft opinion reversing Roe that may have doomed Roberts' efforts.
New details obtained by CNN reveal the high-stakes internal abortion rights drama that intensified in April when the justices first learned the draft opinion would soon be published. Tensions over the fate of Roe were only heightened by an investigation into the source of the leak that diminished whatever chance Roberts had to dislodge the 5-justice bloc set to overturn the abortion ruling.
Joining us to share her fascinating new reporting here is CNN legal analyst Joan Biskupik. Joan, tell us how hard he was fighting to bring some folks over to his side.
Morning, Brianna and John. Extremely hard. He was trying week after week after the initial vote in December, after oral arguments, in which 5 of the justices on the far right voted to overturn Roe. Roberts was alone in the middle, wanting to uphold this Mississippi 15-week ban on abortions, but not go further than Roe. And then, of course, you had the 3 liberals saying, we don't want to do any of this. We don't want to disrupt abortion rights at all. So Roberts keeps trying, and it's interesting, Brianna, that not only did his work affect, his efforts toward the 2 newest justices, Brett Kavanaugh and Amy Coney Barrett, but it had an effect on the others. The hard right justices became concerned that he could be successful. The chief has himself switched votes in the past, and he has also been able to pick off justices on the far conservative side for a more of a moderate centrist decision in certain cases. So they became anxious about what he was up to. And the liberals, who had such a defeat this session, started to have some hope that maybe Roe would not be overturned completely.
So, and this is important to look at, and especially given the political situation that we were in when Roe got overturned, and that is the fact that the leaked opinion got leaked. Now, I don't know, again, if this was leaked by someone to the left or someone to the right. We seem to have forgotten about the fact that it is criminal to leak an opinion like this, but once the opinion was leaked, hands were tied. Because, as was pointed out at the time, as soon as the leftoids, especially the leftoids, got wind that they could go back and put public pressure onto the Supreme Court, the protests would never end. They'd be outside houses, they'd be outside bars. Well, they are now anyway, and pretty much the protests haven't ended. But if you think that what you're seeing now is bad outside the steakhouse, outside the Supreme Court, outside the homes, etc., if you think that's bad now, imagine what they would have done if they would know, if they'd been given the inkling that, hey, we can come back and do whatever it is that we want. We can make them do whatever we want. All we have to do is make them scared. Hands were tied as soon as the draft opinion came out. Which actually does kind of make me wonder if this wasn't a clerk of Kavanaugh or Barrett. Because, we all knew the hands were tied as soon as the draft opinion came out. There was still time to argue before that, but once that draft opinion was out, it was over. As far as Roberts goes, yeah, we knew this. He didn't want to upset the vote too much. And he still wanted his branch of government to be the most powerful one that can legislate from the bench and nobody's going to care. Knowing full well that if the draft opinion came out and the Supreme Court realized that, oh no, we do have limits and the legislature should legislate, they're no longer the top dog. The legislature is. So yeah, it's obvious why Roberts was coming out to do this, but yet here we sit. Hey look, the left thinks that they found a great big gotcha over here because they think that denying the vote to come back out and codify this into federal law means that you're absolutely against gay marriage completely. The left found a gotcha, right? From NBC. GOP lawmaker attended gay son's wedding 3 days after voting against same-sex marriage. From Zachary Shermley. Is that how you pronounce that? Probably. A Republican lawmaker attended his gay son's wedding just 3 days after joining the majority of his GOP colleagues and voting against a House bill that would codify federal protections for same-sex marriage. The gay son of what is flying over my house? Are the jets in? Are they going to bomb me? Is it a drone? I don't know, it sure as hell is loud, though, I'll tell you that. The gay son of Rep. Glenn Thomas of Pennsylvania confirmed to NBC News on Monday that he married the love of his life on Friday, and that his father was there. NBC News is not publishing the names of the grooms, neither of whom is a public figure. Wouldn't be too hard to find. Thompson's press secretary, Madison Stone, also confirmed the congressman was in attendance. Congressman and Mrs. Thompson were thrilled to attend the celebration of their son's marriage on Friday. As they began this new chapter in his life, Stone sent an email adding that Thompsons are very happy to welcome their new son-in-law into the family. Gawker was the first to report the nuptials in an article published on Thursday, the day before the ceremony, though it was not reported whether the lawmaker would attend. In an email last week to the local paper, Center Daily, Stone called the Respect for Marriage Act nothing more than an election year messaging stunt for Democrats in Congress who have failed to address historic inflation and out-of-control prices at gas pumps and grocery stores. Here's the deal. I don't believe in marriage on a federal level. I don't believe in state marriage to begin with. What have I said since the beginning? If by some odd chance I ever do get hitched, which is waning more and more as we go, if for whatever reason I do happen to get hitched, though, I will get 2 marriage certificates. One will come from the Episcopal Lutheran Church of the Wisconsin Synod that allows me to have sex with my wife in a manner which is pleasing to God, and procreate as such. The other one will come from the state of Wisconsin. Guess which one I'm not going to give a damn about? Guess which one of those 2 is not going to mean jack crap to me? But further, with this going on, if we do have to have state involvement off of this, because of the joint filing status and taxation, which we could, eliminate this entire argument if we just determine that taxation is theft and end federal taxation to begin with, entirely, gone, away. But you ain't ready for that conversation. It should still be at its state level, the state that's issuing the license. The federal government should not be able to come back in and tell the states how to do their own licensing. That's against the 10th Amendment. And Congressman Thompson can recognize this and still support his son for doing this. Congressman Thompson did not come out and say he wants to outlaw homosexual marriage. He says that he doesn't want it to be regulated at a federal level. There is a difference. And again, I don't think that it should have any involvement in the state whatsoever. If you want to have a property contract, have a property contract. Marriage is a religious institution. Guys, should I ask you out? Alright, let's talk about Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell can enjoy movies and yoga after transfer to Florida prison. From Lee Brown. She has a new arm. Thanks, I hate it. Convicted Madam Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved 1,000 miles to a soft, low-security prison in Florida. One where inmates enjoy movies, a running track, and even yoga in the yard. The disgraced socialite, who complained to the UN about human rights abuses during her 2 years in custody in Brooklyn, was expected to serve her time in the Federal Correction Institution in Danbury, Connecticut, the prison that inspired Orange is the New Black. I've seen some of that show, but not a lot. However, the Federal Bureau of Prisons confirmed to the Post that the 60-year-old madam was instead moved Friday to FCI Tallahassee, a low-security federal correctional institution in Florida. Her release is currently set for July 17, 2037, a few months before she turns 76. The transfer is surprising, given that sentencing judge Allison Nathan had been the one to request Maxwell be sent to FCI Danbury, just 55 miles north of the city. It puts Maxwell back in Florida, where her since-deceased ex-notorious pedophile Jeffrey Epstein abused many of his victims. Her new home will be widely different from the conditions Maxwell alleged suffering in Brooklyn, where she complained about sharing a tiny cell with rats, having maggot-infested meals, and being put through a torturous treatment by guards. I guarantee you she didn't have maggot-infested meals, because there are still standards that our prisons have to be held to for cruel and unusual punishment. We do still have standards for that. So Daxo still comes in, does the meals for all this stuff. It's not their finest stuff, but it does have to meet a certain standard of cleanliness to be offered to people. Now, I don't really care that she's going into this prison. What I care about is what she's going to have access to do while she's in this prison. She has internet access, which means she can go back out and groom more kids. She can do yoga. I don't care about that. You can do yoga in my tiny living room right here. She also has, because she does swing both ways, access to young girls to either recruit for her own pleasure or recruit to make money for her once they all get back out. She probably has access to somebody on the outside who, once these girls get out, with no real prospects to go back in and enter the real world. Oh, hey, you want to make some money, kid? The fact of the matter is that this, having exercise in a prison is nothing new. A baseball diamond, a running track, the ability to do yoga. I've often complained about the dismal ways that some of the prisoners, especially for non-violent crimes, are kept. That's not the point. The point is that this is a woman who has access to her fortune outside of prison. Whether or not she can or can't use it in the commissary, she can come out to her friends and say, hey, let me have your commissary money, and you'll be taken care of once you get back out. Hey, you're on the way out anyway. Just let me have your commissary credits here, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of on the way out. And oh, by the way, I'll have a job lined up for you once you get back out. So hey, why don't you just come back out here and have a little taste. Have a little taste for mama. No, the guards will look the other way, I promise. And she'll be back in recruiting once again. Here's one from CNN that surprised us, or surprised me rather. I'm used to playing video games where I say that we're playing together even though I'm the only one playing. Hey, let's go in and explore this. Hey, we're going to go explore this now. From CNN, facts first, fact check, Democrat group makes multiple false claims in its dramatic allegations about Lauren Boebert's past. Dude, if you are getting fact checked by CNN about Lauren Boebert, you've gone too far. From Daniel Dale. A Democratic super PAC has made multiple false claims about Republican Representative Lauren Boebert while pushing unproven allegations that her right-wing Colorado congresswoman has had abortions and formerly worked as an escort, all of which Boebert vehemently denies. American Muckrakers PAC co-founder David Wheeler acknowledged to CNN that the super PAC had been sloppy and had published inaccuracies on its anti-Boebert website. Yeah, well, they did the same thing to Cawthorn, too. Which is why they thought, oh, we got her! We got her! It's gonna happen now! We got her! We got her! Though he said it remains confident in the main points of the story, his comments come after CNN reporting found the super PAC had made at least 5 false statements about Boebert along with a series of uncorroborated assertions that Boebert says are false, and CNN could neither immediately confirm nor immediately debunk. I'm gonna debunk! In emails this week and in a Thursday interview, Wheeler conceded the super PAC was wrong when it insisted a photo of another woman posing on a bed is a photo of Boebert, was wrong when it claimed Boebert initially failed to disclose a campaign contribution from Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, was wrong to suggest Cruz had made a big contribution to Boebert's campaign immediately after she started running in her first primary, was wrong about the date of Boebert's vehicle accident, and was wrong when it published a claim that Boebert had had an abortion in the fall of 2004, at most 6 months before she gave birth to a son in March of 2005. Yeah, you should really probably do your homework before you say something you could get sued for. Are they trying to bring the bowling shirt back? Are we in a Charlie Sheen TV show again? Seriously? Although that one does look kind of cool. I would probably wear that one. If you are going against Boebert and getting fact-checked by CNN, you done messed up. What else do we have? Let's talk about the recession stuff. We're up on the clock right now, so we will see what it is that we can get to for the rest of the day. There are a couple that we might have to skip around for because I want to make sure I get to. Recession. Reporter. Is the White House trying to change the common definition of a recession? Token diversity hire. We're seeing the strength of the economy and the labor market.
Next week's a very big week for the economy. So I read the CEA blog. Is the White House trying to change the common definition of a recession because next Thursday the GDP numbers coming out are going to show that we've been in a recession?
So let me say this, the strength of our labor market along with the other economic factors is what we generally see in a recession or even is not what we generally see in a recession or even a pre-recession, because we're seeing the strength of the economy and the labor market. So that's really important to note there because those are key elements as we talk about that, as folks keep asking us about that. So Americans across the country are back to work at a historic level. 21 states, the most in history, have unemployment rates at or below 3%. That is an important number to note. 14 states are now at their lowest unemployment rates since this series began in 1976. And last month, the unemployment rate was a new low in 8 states. So again, the strength of our labor market, along with the economic indicators, is not what we generally see as we talk about recession or even pre-recession.
The growth of the job for the 3-month trend, the growth of job growth in the U.S. is shrinking, is decreasing, and 7.5 million people, a growing number, are multi-jobs, meaning they have to work more than one job to afford a living.
Yeah, that reminds me of the old Obama meme back when Obama was still in the office. The old guy standing out here says, I had to get 2 jobs just so I could afford insurance. And you see the political cartoon Obama sitting up there. See, I'm the greatest president in history. I'm double job growth. Look at that. Everybody has to have 2 jobs.
So is jobs really a good indicator then?
Look, here's what I would say. We've always talked about the strength of our economy. We've always talked about how historic it's been, and we've always talked about the transitioning, right? The transitioning to more stable and steady growth. And so to your point about the job growth there, this is what we have been kind of stating for the past several months. Look, the economy created 1.1 million jobs in the second quarter. And around 375 jobs per month. Those are historic numbers. Those are, if you think about the 1.1 million jobs, we are back to where we were at pre-pandemic levels. So that is what we see as strength of the economy. Again, we're going to transition into a more stable and steady growth, and so we're going to continue the work that the president has set out to do to make sure that we continue to deliver for the American people when it comes to the economy. All right, folks.
And they keep talking about the unemployment off of this, but one of the things that you really do need to pay attention to when we go into something like this is what the workforce participation is. Your unemployment, your first-time unemployment claims only tell so much of the story. It doesn't talk about the people who are either on continuing claims, but most importantly, who fell out of the unemployment because it ran out for them and they had to go back onto other forms of government assistance to go back and do something, or move in with mommy and daddy, or something like that. It doesn't show any of those things. It just shows who's on unemployment insurance right now, who's possibly going to be getting back into the labor market, but possibly not as well. I know they love the number because it shows low, and I criticize Trump for this too, because he loved that number too. Lowest unemployment rate in all of history, okay? I did it, your favorite president. But when he was doing it, his labor participation was also going up. So there's way more to the story than token diversity hire is saying. Absolutely is. And yes, if people are running out 2 jobs, that is taking jobs away from other people who could be coming off of the unemployment benefits and taking one of these jobs for themselves. Brian Deese also got into this. 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of a recession. It's not the definition economists have traditionally relied on. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
On the definition of recession, which has been an issue that I know many of you have reported on. As Secretary Yellen said on Sunday, 2 negative quarters of GDP growth is not the technical definition of recession. It's not the definition that economists have traditionally relied on. On the definition of recession, which has been,
which it absolutely is, but again, they're trying hard not to make this a thing coming into the election. They can't have a recession coming into midterms. They will get curb stomped. All right, I do want to skip around and grab a couple other ones here that are not in order, including this one because we talked about this here. All right, let's do this one. Gotta throw an F up in the chat. I gotta come off my diet just for this. See if I can actually find one after work today. For one day, and one day only. From CNN. Throw those Fs up, guys. The Choco Taco is gone. For good. From Danielle Wiener-Bronner. Pour one out for the Choco Taco. The beloved Klondike product, packaged ice cream in a taco-shaped cone, has been discontinued. Over the past 2 years, we've experienced an unprecedented spike in demand across our portfolio, and I've had to make a hard, tough decision to ensure availability of our full portfolio nationwide, a Klondike brand representative told CNN Business in an email, adding, "We know this may be very disappointing. You could possibly still find Choco Tacos around as sellers run through their inventory," the representative said. "I am praying. I want to get my last Choco Taco." During the pandemic, it became common for companies to slim down their portfolios to help meet demand for their most popular items, but even less popular products have devoted fans who are upset by the decision. Yeah, my dad loved those things. He was crazy about it. I don't know if I've ever eaten one, but I know my dad was crazy about them. Choco Taco has fallen, one Twitter user declared. They always take the best things away from us, another mused. Others berated Klondike for the decision. Yeah, I'm kind of bummed by it. The Choco Taco was born in the 1980s, according to a 2016 article in Eater. At first, it was available mostly through ice cream trucks. Eventually, Unilever, which is now Klondike, began to distribute the product more widely. Ice cream in a waffle cone with toppings is not all that innovative, but ice cream in a taco shell, a waffle taco shell, that was a game changer, according to inventor Alan Drazen. When you eat a sugar cone, you generally eat the nuts, chocolate, and ice cream on top, Drazen told Eater. With the Choco Taco, you're getting the ice cream cone, nuts, and chocolate with just about every bite. For many, the Choco Taco conjures long ago memories of biting into a cold, sweet treat on a hot summer's day. Others may have more recent memories, especially because Taco Bell, which used to sell the product years ago, brought it back to some stores for a limited time event earlier this year. Not all hope is lost, however. Some notable fans are already trying to figure out ways to resurrect the Choco Taco. I'd like to buy the rights to your Choco Taco and keep it from melting away from future generations. Redditor co-founder Alexis Ohanian tweeted at Unilever, Klondike's parent company. Patrick Schreiber responded that he'd go in on this. I don't know if I want Reddit involved in this. There's a certain class of people that likes to go to the ice cream truck that they like to go to the ice cream truck to pick things up that aren't necessarily ice cream. And Alexis Ohanian is trying to protect that class of people. I don't know if I want that be a she. I don't know if I want her going in on that. I think that could probably turn out badly. Predator. But yes, as far as Klondike and Unilever is concerned, the Choco Taco is gone. Pour one out. Let's do this one because we talked about it and I promised it yesterday. Brooklyn bishop robbed at gunpoint while delivering sermon on live stream. From Lisa Rosner. A bishop was robbed at gunpoint in the middle of a sermon on Sunday in Brooklyn, and it was caught on video. The service was being live streamed when, according to the bishop, 3 to 4 men walked in with guns. He believes he was targeted. CBS 2's Lisa Rosner reported. 5 to 10 minutes into preaching on Sunday morning on Ramsden Avenue in Canarsie. Our resident New Yorker can probably help us out with the geography here. Bishop Lamore Whitehead saw the door in the back of the room kick open. 5 to 10 minutes. Let's see. I said, all right. And we're actually talking about Andre 3000 and not the bishop here. Pretty much stating that I'm not going to do anything because I know you're coming for me. You're coming straight to me. I don't want my parishioners hurt. I've got women and children there, said Whitehead of the Leaders of Tomorrow International Ministries. As I got down, one went to my wife and took all her jewelry and had the gun in front of my 8-month-old baby's face, took off my bishop's ring, my wedding band, and took my bishop's chain. And then I had chains underneath my robe, and he started tapping my neck to see if anything else. So that means they knew. They watched and they knew that I have other jewelry, he explained. Let's watch. Told you I'd find video of this. It wasn't easy, by the way, but I found it.
What you about to go through? Yo. All right. Yo, all right.
At least they clicked the microphone off when they did this. For anybody who's just listening to the audio, I understand there's dead air, but yeah, we're watching this happen.
Stay. Don't move. Come here. Come here. Come. Go to your mom. Go to your mom. Go. Stay there, okay? Come.
All right, and that is the live stream. As somebody pointed out, the guy in the back was frozen the whole time. I wonder why they weren't interested in robbing him. He's super calm, almost like he knew he wasn't in any danger. We also have Fang Fang trending, so that'll be interesting. Probably something we'll see tomorrow, but maybe not. We'll see off of that. But yeah, that's the robbery. I told you we'd find video of that. All right. And the last one, before we head out of here for the day, is this funny story that made the rounds throughout the day yesterday. That does remind you to always double check on everything. Never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists, because this was getting circulated like this was real. And then we found out in the middle of the day that it was not. From the New York Post. Leave It to Beaver star Tony Dow is not dead. His wife mistakenly believed that he was. From Samantha Ibrahim. Update: on Tuesday afternoon, Tony Dow's wife told TMZ she believed her husband was dead and told his management team, who announced his passing on his official Facebook account. The wife, Lauren, said as of Tuesday, he's still alive and breathing while in hospice care, and she's distraught over the error. The Facebook post has since been taken down. But here's the original article. Tony Dow, best known for his role as the big brother Wally in the classic TV sitcom Leave It to Beaver, has died. He was 77. They wrote the whole article and left it out. His management team announced the news of his passing on his official Facebook page Tuesday morning. It is with an extremely heavy heart that we share this with you, the passing of our beloved Tony this morning. The post read, Tony was a beautiful soul, kind, compassionate, funny, and humble. It was truly a joy to just be around him. His gentle voice and unpretentious manner was immediately comforting, and you could not help but love him. The world has lost an amazing human being, but we're all richer for the memories that he has left us. What's funny about this is how many people actually do get to read their own obituary, because Tony Dow gets to. But I also question, how do you make that mistake? And really, honestly, how do you let it get around the world like this? Before you realize, like, legitimately, I would want at least to have the certificate in hand before I made something like this, especially for somebody that's that famous. I feel like there must have been a ball dropped at some point, somewhere, several balls dropped, in order to get from the beginning of this article to being published, to coming back out and having to retract it. There seems to be a problem with communication here. But no, Tony Dow is fine. He's 77. He's hanging out. He's cool. False alarm, guys. But that's it. That's all we're going to do for the day. I got a couple more to come back to tomorrow. One on The View. Some China stuff. Some WEF stuff. Rural Americans have to go back out to the urban areas. All kinds of fun stuff like that. Let's get out of here for the day. He's on hospice, so he's not fine. Okay. I'll see that out to you. Ooh, nice big stretch at the end. All right, so with that, we're gonna head out of here for the day. But before we do, I always close out Wednesday. Something I'm thankful for, something that restores my faith in humanity, and some of that involves my weekend trip here. Now, I did have plans get canceled for the past weekend here. I was gonna go spend the weekend at my dad's. I wound up on my way to Kenosha instead to go back and get myself a used tire, something that'll hold me over until I can pull up the $1,000 to put 4 new tires on there. Thanks, inflation. FJB. You know, it's going to cost me more to put 4 tires around 18s than it cost me to put 4 tires around 20s 3 years ago, and 20s are supposed to be way more expensive. I'm really glad I don't have 20s anymore. Man, I can't even imagine what that would cost right now. That'd probably be a $1,500 job in and of itself. But as far as what I'm thankful for, I spent the day. I went around, I got my errands taken care of, and I just randomly made a text and a call after I got the tire put on. I drove around for a little bit just to make sure the integrity was there, in case I had to go back and say, hey, your tire messed up. Your used tire messed up, so go put another one on here so I can get home. So I drove around instead of going straight home, just kind of drove around town, and I knew the town. I got lost a little bit, but lots of turning, lots of pressure onto that, and I texted my cousin while I was getting gas. I'm like, hey, I'm in town. And he was a little bit surprised over the fact that I had come down for just that, but he understood once it was explained to him, and just out of the blue, he decided to come back down because he doesn't live in town anymore, but he lives close to town. So he decided to come down and have dinner with me, and it was, you know, a lot of it was like nothing had ever changed, and there are those familial connections out there that do always seem to change. I was able to catch up a little bit on some of the drama of the family. Some of the drama in his family, which I used to live with. His parents and the drama there. But, you know, just the fact that you can come back out and you can see the same things happen again. It was his first time seeing my truck, and I've owned it for 3 years. So it's been a little while. But, you know, get caught up and see some of the people, see where they go to. So I thought that was pretty cool. That was something I'm thankful for. I'm always thankful to have family, and they thanked me for coming down. And I'm like, I didn't come down just for to see you guys, but I'm really thankful you guys took some time and spent the time with me and seeing where I'm at. He might be in the chat right now. He might be able to see your chats. I don't know if he's saying anything, but I thought that was pretty awesome. That was pretty amazing. And there are some relationships out there that time just doesn't change, no matter what. And I'm always thankful for those ones. You get the ones where you grow apart, you grow together over time, and you get the ones where you just call randomly after 5 years and say, hey, I'm in town, let's go get a burger at your favorite place. And your favorite place is still there, and it's just exactly the same. There might be a new person in there because of a wedding, but other than that, it all looks exactly the same. And that's pretty awesome. I'm glad to see that kind of stuff. I hope that we see more of that throughout time. And I'm thankful for that. It restores my faith in humanity. All right. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. So let's change up the track and let's go. Probably bring this up just a little bit too, huh? Now that I've learned how to adjust my volume and keep it on level on stream here. But that's behind the scenes stuff. Let's head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat. Everybody who came and hung out, saw us, hung out with us, commented on the news. We had a good crowd today. maintained 12 throughout most of the stream. So thank you for that. Let's see if we can't get those numbers up to 20 as we go. And remember, if you are just lurking right now, we'll be doing thing I like and thing that I hate at the end of the show tomorrow. And on Friday, if you put at least one message in the chat throughout the week, although I don't know if stickers count on DLive, but if you put at least one message in the chat, your name will show up on this list right here, and you'll get a special thank you from me at the end of the weekend, or at the end of the week rather, because, hey, I knew that you were here. You took the time out of your morning, you came and hung out with us. I'm actually going to turn to the page so we can get ready and get that going. And also on Friday, we'll go through some of the live chat, see what some of you guys are saying. I know we have to temper it a little bit now because we are competing with the AM radio folks, so there is that, but we will make sure that everybody who wants to be identified can be identified and thanked. And with that, we are going to head out here for the morning. Thank you, everybody who came by and chatted. We will see you here next time. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going rating. And until next time, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.